Hi guys, so today we're going to be learning about the law of cosines. Before we get started in solving our triangle, let's talk about what the law of cosines is. Okay? So here in your book, it talks about how the law of cosines is derived. Okay? So if you're interested in that, you can look that here on page 793. Okay? But based off of this, we get the law of cosines. And what it is a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine a. Okay? So these are all saying the same thing. It's just focusing on a different side. But basically, the side square equals your other two side squares added together minus 2 times those two sides again times cosine of the angle across from this side. Okay? And then how you know which one you want is your unknown, the thing you are solving for. If it's a side, should either be here, or if it's an angle, should be this angle that we're talking about here. Okay? So there's no need to memorize all three of them if you kind of understand how, oh, this is this part, this is this part. Okay? Okay. There we go. Okay. So with that in mind, let's get started with 13-5. Okay? Okay. So here, we're going to use the law of cosines because all we have is two sides and the included angle. Okay, so note we don't have a pair, right? This is unknown. This is unknown. This is unknown. So we don't have a pair of one angle and its side, opposite side. So that's why we can't use law of cosine. Okay? That's why we can't use law of sine. Okay? So now, let's solve for C. Okay? So like I said, it's always going to be the side that you are looking for is going to be here, or if it's the angle, it'll be cosine of that angle. Okay, so C squared equals my two other sides squared, so 24 squared plus 18 squared, okay, minus 2 times those two sides again, 24 and 18, times cosine of the angle, either I'm solving that angle or the angle across from the one that I'm solving for. So in this case, 57. Okay, so now let's solve. Okay, so C squared equals, right, I'm going to need our calculator to help us, 24 squared. I'm going to simplify this. Okay, I could technically, since I'm just solving for C, I just need to get rid of the square. I could totally just square root it and enter it all in my calculator. Okay, so if you have that skill and you're able to type it in a way that your calculator understands, by all means, you can do that right away. Okay, but for some of us, we're not very handy with the calculator, so then it's better to just kind of simplify as we go. Okay, so 24 squared is 576, 18 squared is 324, and then 224, 18, this is negative 864. And then this is cosine of 57. Okay, I'm going to keep simplifying. 576 plus 324 is 900. Okay, you cannot subtract this now. Okay, you can't do 576 plus 324 minus 864. You cannot do that because according to order of operations, this is connected by multiplication. And you would have to figure out what this is first before you can subtract it. Okay? So 900 minus 864 cosine 57. Right? Now this is when I would enter it into my calculator if I wasn't as skilled at typing it all in one go. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to type it in. So I'm going to hit square root. I'm going to hit 900 minus, and I want the calculator to know that this is a grouping. Right? So I'm going to put, as I type it in the calculator, parentheses around this, minus parentheses 864 times cosine 57. And then for my calculator, I need to close the parentheses for what I'm doing the cosine of. And then since I put a parentheses here, I have to close that as well here. Okay. And that gives me that C is approximately, and the way that our book rounds it to is the 10th place. So I'm going to do 20.7. Okay. So now I have angle C, which was given to me originally, and I have side C. So now, instead of doing law of cosines, which I can do to find angle B and A, now since I do have a pair, I'm just going to use law of sines. Okay? So that's going to make it a little bit easier. So this was step one. Okay, so now that I have my pair, I'm going to use law of sines. So sine of 57 over. Ideally, it would be great if we didn't use this approximation because the book approximated will just approximate as well too. So equals, and I'm going to do B first. So sine B paired with 24. Okay. Multiply this together. 24 times sine 57 equals 20.7 times sine B. Right, cross multiply. Here, this is connected by multiplication, so I'm going to get rid of it by dividing. Okay, note that I'm not dividing by sign. Sign is not a multiplication operation, okay? It's something else. Okay, so you can't just divide out the sign. So here, this is 24 sine 57 over 20.7. This equals sine B, right? Now, to get B by itself, I have to get rid of sine. Again, this is not multiplication. Sine is its own operation, so you need to do the inverse of that operation. The inverse of sine is sine inverse. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Okay? And so then, sine inverse of 24 times sine of 57 over 20.7 will give me B. Okay, so now I'm going to type that into my calculator. Okay, if any part of it you don't know how to use your calculator, please contact me. Okay, the calculator is only as smart as the person using it. Okay, so if you don't know how, like you can figure out this, but then you don't know how to type it in the calculator and it always ends up incorrect, please let me know and then I will help you out. Okay, so I'm going to enter it into my calculator. Okay, so you can either enter it in one go, or if you're not able to, just do it part by part, right? And if I had to do it part by part, I would do 24 times this, 24 times sine 57, then I take equals, then I would divide by 20.7, and then I do sine inverse of that answer. That's how I would do it if I had to do it separately. Okay. So here, what this gives me is that it tells me that angle B is about 76 degrees. Okay, so for angles, we're measuring it to the whole degree. So 76 degrees equals angle B. Okay. And then after that, now I'm going to solve for A. Okay. And so since I already have CB, I don't have to do the whole, I can use law of sine if I want, I can use law of cosine, but since I have two of the angles for a triangle already, they add up to 180. So angle A plus angle B, which is 76, plus angle C, which is 57, should add up to 180. Okay. So 76 plus 57 is 133. Subtract 133 on both sides. And that gives me 47. Okay. And so now I solved everything. I have all of the sides and all of the angle measures. Okay. So why don't you try CYP1, and then once you're done, come check your answer. Okay, you should have gotten side length of G is 6.7, angle H is 36 degrees, and angle F is 62 degrees. If you got that right, you can move on to the next example. If not, here is your explanation. Okay. So I drew a picture of it. It's not accurate in any way, but just so that way I know what matches with what. Okay, so since it's called triangle FGH, here's my triangle. Angle G is 82, F, which is across from angle F, is 6, H, which is across from angle H, is 4. Okay, then, since this is the angle that's given to me, I'm going to use that to find that side. So G squared equals the other two angles squared added together, so 4 squared plus 6 squared, minus 2 times those angles again, 4 times 6, times cosine of 82. Okay, so again, always what you don't know is either going to be here or here, okay, depending on if it's a side or if it's an angle. Okay? Then 4 squared is 16, 6 squared is 36, negative 2 times 4 times 6 is negative 48. 16 plus 36 is 52, and then again, you cannot do 15 minus 48 because this 48 is connected to the cosine by multiplication, okay? So order of operations says you need to know what this is before you can do 52 minus that, okay? Then, to get g by itself, get rid of the square by square rooting both sides, enter that into my calculator, 6.7. Okay? Technically, you could have entered the calculator in from the beginning, right? You could have just gotten rid of the square by square rooting the whole thing here, but then that just takes making sure that you entered it into the calculator correctly to let it know which order of operations to do and what to group together. Okay, so now with that, I have a pair, so I can now do law of sines. Okay, if I don't want to do law of sines, that's fine. You can do law of cosines again to figure out what angle H and what angle F is. Okay, law of sines is just a little bit faster. Okay, so with the pair that I now have, 82 and my 6.7 here, okay, equals, and then since side H was given to me, I'm going to find angle H first. Okay, so again, cross multiply, that leaves me with this. Get rid of the 6.7 that's being multiplied to the sine operation, so divide, okay? And then get rid of the sine operation by doing its inverse, which is sine inverse here. Enter it all into my calculator, 36 it is. Okay. Then, if I want, I can do law of sine or law of cosine to find angle F, but since I already have two of the angles of my triangle, and I know they add up to 180, I can just do angle F plus 82 plus 36 equals 180. So for angle F, that's 62. Okay. So, example 2, this time we're not given any angles at all. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for an angle. Okay? It doesn't matter which one you want to do. Okay? The book decided to do A first. That's fine. We can do A first. Okay? But whether you chose to do angle B or angle C, it does not matter. Okay? So here, since I'm going to start with angle A, okay, then I'm going to start with a squared, which is the side of the squared. So this is going to be 15 squared equals my other two sides squared and added together, 7 squared plus 9 squared, minus 2 times those sides again, 7 times 9, and then times cosine, and this time I want a. Right? So what matters is that these two have to be the pair. Okay? One of these is the unknown. Okay, so now let's solve. 15 squared is 225. 7 squared is 49. 9 squared is 81. Negative 2 times 7 times 9 is 126. Minus 126 cosine of A. Okay. 49 plus 81 is 130. So 225 equals 130. Minus 126 cosine A. Again, you cannot subtract it. This is connected to the cosine by multiplication. Okay, so I keep repeating that because that is what I often see as a mistake. Okay, so now we're slowly going to get A by itself. So I'm going to get rid of this 130 since it's positive. It's a positive 130. I'm going to get rid of it by subtracting 130 on both sides. Okay. So it's 225 minus 130 will give me 95. So 95 equals, this goes bye-bye, negative 126 cosine A. Okay? Then this is connected by multiplication, so I'm going to get rid of it by dividing. Okay? And then if you want, you can simplify it, but you're going to type it into your calculator anyway, so no need to simplify. So this divides into 1. 1 times anything is itself. So cosine A. Okay. Now, just need A by itself, right? So still getting A by itself. I'm going to get rid of the cosine. Cosine is its own operation. So its inverse is cosine inverse. So I'm doing cosine inverse of this whole thing. So cosine inverse of 95 over negative 126. Good. And then this gives me, the book always rounds your angles to the nearest degree. Because if not, if you get too much into the nitty gritty, it starts not working. Not because it doesn't work, but just because eventually when we start calculating and using our calculations, if we want it too specific, but then we're also rounding it at the same time, the answers might not be as nice. Okay, so rounding it, that's about 139 degrees is angle A. Okay, so now I have a pair. Okay, and so since I have a pair now, I can figure out my other angles. So now you can either find angle B or angle C. It doesn't matter which one you choose. The book just decided to do B next. Maybe they wanted to go in alphabetical order. Okay, but it technically, when you're doing it, it doesn't matter. Provided that you're doing all the mathematical calculations correct, you should still get the same answer. Okay. Okay, so now, again, we can use law of cosines all over. Again, just change it to B and cosine B, right? But law of sines is a little bit faster. So we're going to use the pair we now have. So sine 139 over A, which is 15, equals sine of angle B over side length of B, which is 9. Okay. Cross multiply, so this is 9 times sine 139 equals 15 times sine B. Going to get rid of the times 15 by dividing by 15. So 9 times sine 139 divided by 15 equals sine B. Okay. Going to get rid of the sine operation by doing sine inverse of both sides. So sine inverse of 9 times sine 139 over 15 equals B. Now I'm going to enter it into my calculator. Okay, so again, I could enter it in one go, or if I'm not as skilled with how to enter it in, I would just do it step by step. I would do 9 times this, sine 139, then hit equals, then I would divide by 15, then hit equals, and then I would do sine inverse of the answer. Okay, but if you're able to enter it all in one go and communicate with your calculator which order of operations to do and what to group, then by all means you can do it all in one go. Okay, and then equals, and I get B is approximately 23 degrees. Alright, now I have C. Again, I can use law of cosines, I can use law of sines, but since I already have two angles of my triangle, I know they add up to 180. So I can just do angle C plus angle A plus angle B should equal to 180. Right? 139 plus 23 is 162. And then 180 minus 162 is 18. So angle C is 18 degrees. And there you go. Okay, so then why don't you try CYP2 on your own, and then once you're done, come check the answer. Okay, so for CYP2, plot twist, there actually is no solution, okay? The reason why, if you chose to solve it, when you hit your cosine inverse, you would have gotten an error message, because it doesn't work. So it's no solution, okay? The reason why, is because it doesn't even meet the triangle inequality theorem postulate, that we learn in geometry, right? So from the triangle inequality rule, what we know is that the two sides of a triangle have to add up to be greater than the third side, always, right? And so here it doesn't work because 1 plus 2 is not greater than 11. So really, if I give you a stick that's 1 inch, a stick that's 2 inches, and a stick that's 11 inches, there is no way that you can use those 3 sticks to build a triangle. Okay, so this triangle actually doesn't even exist. And so that's why there's no solution. Okay, there's that. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to our last example, which is example 3. But before your book gets to the last example, example 3, it gives you some advice on when you should use law of sines and law of cosines. Okay, so here it is. So two angles and any side, use law of sines, or two sides and an angle that's opposite one of them, law of sines, and then other than that, you use law of cosines. Right? So basically, law of sines you can only use it if you can figure out a pair. Once you have a pair, law of sines it is. Other than that, law of cosines. Okay, so then let's move on to our last example. Example 3. Okay, so a medical rescue helicopter, right here, has flown from its house at point C. Oh, sorry, not its house. It doesn't have a house. It has a home base. Has flown from its home base at point C to pick up an accident victim at point A. Okay? And then from there, it's going to go to the hospital, which is here at point B. Okay? The pilot needs to know how far he is now from his home base so he can decide whether to refuel before returning. So what we want to know is how far is the hospital from the helicopter base. Okay? So no pair, right? So that's why we're using law of cosines. And here we don't know this. It's labeled as A. Okay? So A squared equals my other two sides squared. So 45 squared plus 50 squared minus 2 times those two sides again, 45 and 50, times cosine of the angle across from what I'm looking for. Okay, so in this case, cosine of 130. Okay, and then again, if you want to, you can just type it all in one go. Okay, if not, that's fine. We'll just simplify it until we can type it all in one go. So 45 squared is 2,025. 50 squared is 2,500. 2 times 45 times 50 is negative 4,500. And then cosine of 130. Okay. 2025 plus 2500 is 4525. Right. Again, you cannot subtract these. This is connected to the cosine by multiplication. Okay. Now I can enter it all in one go. Get rid of the square with A by square rooting. And then type this into my calculator. Okay. So again, your calculator doesn't know order of operations, so I often put a parentheses around this one so it knows to do this as a group. So square root of 4525 minus 4,500 times cosine of 130. And that gives me approximately 86 point. Your book rounds it to one decimal place, so 86.1. So how far is the hospital from the helicopter base? The hospital is 86.1, and we're talking in miles, 86.1 miles from the helicopter base, approximately. And there you go. Okay. So why don't you try CYP3, and then once you're done, come check your answer. Okay, you should have gotten that Amelia is 9.8 miles away from her starting point. If you got that right, you can get started on your homework. If not, here is your explanation. Okay, so it tells us that as part of training to run a marathon, she ran 6 miles in one direction. So I'm assuming she's starting here, 6 miles in one direction. She then turned and ran another 9 miles, and then the two legs of her run formed an angle of 79 degrees. Okay. And then now, I want to know how far she was from her starting point when she was at the end of the second leg. Okay. And so this is my unknown. Okay, so that's why I put it as x squared equals 6 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 6 times 9 again, times cosine of the angle across from my unknown, which is 79. Okay, then I just simplified. 6 squared is 36, 9 squared is 81, 2 times 6 times 9, 108 here. 36 plus 81 is 117, and then again, you cannot subtract these because this is connected by multiplication. Okay. Then I got rid of the square that's attached to the x by square rooting both sides. So x equals square root of 117 minus 108 times cosine 79. Type that all into my calculator, I get approximately 9.8. And so that is why Amelia is 9.8 miles away from her starting point. Okay. That's it for today. Have a great rest of the day. Bye, guys.